Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Today we're going reading from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, text number 47. Jaya Rad Amadava Kunja Bihari Jaya Rad Amadava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Rad Amadava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Rad Amadava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari. Yasodhanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jayarad Amadava Kunjabihari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Text, that's it now. Text, that's it now. Thank you. Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much. So today we're going to be reading from chapter 11, text number 47, and the verses on the screen. We're first going to start with the Sanskrit recitation. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Prasanena Tavarjun Idam Rupam Param Darshitam Atma Yogat Tejo mayam visvam anantumadyam yanmetvadanyena na drista purvam. Okay. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya prasantanena tavarjunedam Rupam param darsi tam atma yogat Tejomayam visvam ananta adyam Yanmetvadanyena nadrista purvam. Okay. One more time, then we'll recite. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya prasanena tavarjunedam Rupam param darsitam atma yogat Tejomayam visvam anantamadyam Yanmetvadanyena nadrista purvam. Okay, and would anyone like to recite? Here. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya prasanena tavarjunedam Rupam param darsitam atma yogat Tejomayam visvam ananta adyam Yanmetvadanyena nadrista purvam. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya prasanena tavarjunedam Rupam param darsitam atma yogat Tejomayam visvam anantam adyam Yanmetvadanyena nadrista purvam. Okay, and the translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Arjuna, happily have I shown you my internal potency, this supreme universal form within the material world. No one before you has ever seen this primal form, unlimited and full of glaring effulgence. And one more time. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Arjuna, happily have I shown you by my internal potency this supreme universal form within the material world. No one before you has ever seen this primal form, unlimited and full of glaring effulgence and purport. Arjuna wanted to see the universal form of the Supreme Lord, so Lord Krishna, out of his mercy upon his devotee Arjuna, showed his universal form, full of effulgence and opulence. This form was glaring like the sun, and its many faces were rapidly changing. Krishna showed this form just to satisfy the desire of his friend Arjuna. This form was manifested by Krishna through his internal potency, which is inconceivable by human speculation. No one had seen this universal form of the Lord before Arjuna, But because the form was shown to Arjuna, other devotees in the heavenly planets and other planets in outer space could also see it. They had not seen it before, but because of Arjuna, they were also able to see it. In other words, all the disciplic devotees of the Lord could see the universal form which was shown to Arjuna by the mercy of Krishna. Someone has commented that this form was shown to Duryodhan also when Krishna went to Duryodhan to negotiate for peace. Unfortunately, Duryodhan did not accept the peace offer, but at that time Krishna manifested some of his universal forms. But those forms are different from this one shown to Arjuna. It is clearly said that no one had ever seen this form before. Jai Shri Prabhupada Ki. So here we have that uh, Arjuna has been shown the universal form by Krishna. The form is it's quite a startling a happening for Arjuna that he can no longer see Krishna in the same way that before his friend Krishna, that he used to actually uh, joke with and very casually interact with. Um, and now that Krishna has shown this universal form, which is described as devastating, a form of destruction that ultimately represents this material universe. It shows this material universe in its stark reality, that the material universe is simply through the agency of time is bringing all things into destruction, which is shown by the mouth and the blazing fire of this universal form. So we might ask the question, um, Arjuna, why was he so fortunate that he could see the universal form, and Duryodhan, um, he saw somewhat of the universal form, but uh, the question has to be raised actually, that why was Duryodhan not able to actually appreciate Krishna? Um, it seems like this mercy upon Arjuna, of course, it was mercy upon Duryodhan, but Duryodhan never seemed to actually capitalize on that. So um, it said that when Krishna was present, so many people had what he call darshan, or his audience, and still they couldn't actually recognize Krishna, and that has to be understood, that we think that when we see if the Supreme Personality of Godhead was there, that his personality must be so spectacular that we couldn't help but see him. But Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that those fools who deride him, they cannot know him, and so Krishna can keep his supremacy concealed for those who are actually not so deserving. And in this material universe, we see that things are going from gross to subtle. We have this material world, and then below it is what we call more of the hellish regions, which are more gross, and then all the way to the heavenly planets, which are more subtle and more refined as well, uh, and full of opulence. And it's mentioned that also the devotees of Krishna who are in the disciplic succession, they could also see the universal form. So they were devotees of Krishna, and that was their qualification. As it says in the Bhagavad Gita, Tad Vidi Pranipatena Pariprashnena Sevaya Upateksyanti Degyanam Janinas Tattvadarshanaha. That if we want to know the truth, we should approach a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service. Such realized souls can impart knowledge unto us because they have seen the truth. So it's also important to understand that generally it's not possible to just approach Krishna directly. Even here we have Krishna and Srimati Radharani on the altar, but we can have, we can see Krishna every day, and we can still be so far away from him. So it's not just through darshan that we actually know Krishna. It's through the instructions that Krishna has given us. And ultimately, to follow in the disciplic succession. So our goal is to be the servant of the servant, and that's how we can actually become dear to Krishna. Krishna says in the 9th chapter, he says that he is partial to no one. In fact that he's fair to everyone, but one who actually renders service unto him becomes dear to him. And this is actually how we actually get Krishna's mercy, is that only through seva, service, and that determination can we actually get the mercy of Krishna. So through the instructions of the spiritual master, this is how we can actually, as I said in the morning prayers, Devigyan Herde Prakasito, that the spiritual master, he's actually given us that knowledge into the heart by which we can understand. So it's not by our own, our own speculation. It's spoke about by human speculation, but only through revelation that we can actually understand. And so ultimately, that's why Sri Prabhupada, he emphasized so much on Shravanam. So Shravanam means hearing, and that's the first actual item of devotional service, is that we have to hear. The power of sound, of hearing, is that to actually hear from an authentic source of knowledge is how we can actually awaken that actual knowledge which is innate. So said, Rajavidyam Rajaguyam Pavitramidam Uttamam Prachiyaksha Vagamandarmyam Susukam Kartam Aviyam, that this is the king of all knowledge, the purest of the pure, the secret of all secrets, and it is the perfection of religion, because it gives direct perception of the self, and it's joyfully performed. So devotional service, it is something which will actually it will help to actually awaken that true knowledge. It's something which is not unnatural for us actually. It's the most natural thing. It's just that we find ourselves in an unnatural situation in this material world. So, in this material world, it's us who are actually, we're like fish out of water. We, on superficially, the material world, it will look like a place we might think, everything is fine, but this is not actually what the scriptures tell us. Um, as I said in the Bhagavad Gita, ye ye dam darite jagat, um, that actually us living entities were from the superior energy, the spiritual energy, and we're actually exploiting the resources of this inferior material world. So that's our actual, uh, our propensity in this material world is one of exploitation, enjoyment, uh, and a selfish agenda. So um, sometimes the best thing to do, for example, if we were to go to an AA meeting, the first thing we would do is to admit that we actually have a problem. And if we're in this material world, we definitely have a problem. And that problem is that we want to enjoy this material universe. So we have a selfish motive that we have to become purified of, uh, so we can finally go beyond this material existence. And uh, that's something which I personally have found to be actually a source of empowerment, to to admit our limitations, um, our our vulnerability, that we can't actually do things by our own strength, and the fact that we realize that even whether it's material or spiritual, everything is actually done by the mercy of the Lord. So it said in the Bhagavad Gita, Prakriti Kriyamani Gune Karmani Sarvasaha Hankara Vimudatama Kartahamiti Manyate, that the spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of the false ego, thinks itself to be the actual doer of activities, which in actuality are carried out by the three modes of material nature. So it's all these three modes of material nature which is directing the wanderings of all living entities. So in every species of life, um, are under the influence of these modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. And Krishna says also then in the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 7, Devi Esaguna Maimi, um, sorry, Devi Esaguna Maimi Maya Partite. Yeah, so basically that this divine energy of mine is very difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So it's only by the mercy of Krishna that things actually become easy. Uh, and some people actually they think that being bewildered, they think that material things are spiritual and spiritual things are material. So we can become completely bewildered by the influence of the material energy and the false ego. Uh, um, but as Krishna says, as all souls surrender unto me, ye tamam pradyanti tamseva jamyaham, that as all souls surrender unto him, that he will reward us accordingly. So when Krishna says this, he means either his external energy or his internal energy. So either this material world or the spiritual world. So uh, those souls in this material world, they they may be surrendered to their own desires, which is actually the external energy, and uh, this ultimately is a cause of bondage, and a source of actually, we may be so illusioned, we may think we're happy, but in the from a higher perspective, it's what Sri Prabhupada calls a precarious situation. So it's a situation which um, it's only going to cause the perpetual cycle of repeated birth and death. Ultimately, it's our cycle in this material world. So this material world, it's not it's not so easy to to still as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, as we mentioned, a soul as when one surrenders unto me, they can easily cross beyond it. But still, um, to actually surrender to Krishna from a contaminated perspective, that we have so much impressions, um, desires, attachments, that um, it's true if we're sincere and resolute in purpose, then we can actually easily cross beyond it. But uh, it doesn't mean it's easy. It's by Krishna's mercy we can easily cross beyond it. But of course, Krishna will provide us tests. And as Sripad mentions, Maya is very strong. That Maya is this material world, these three modes of material nature, um, which are overseen by Durga Devi, and are actually uh, who is Krishna's servant, which is uh, obviously more powerful than us actually. So we're just caught in in the storm of material existence, um, without the life rope of, unless we have the life rope of the devotees. So these material modes of nature, they've been described as strong ropes. So we're bound by these material ropes, and it's the spiritual master is the one who is actually free from their bondage. And when someone is free, they can actually have the ability to untie someone else. It's funny that uh, we never think Shri Shri Radha Kukulananda ki, Shri Shri Sitaram Laxman Hanuman ki, Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki. Sometimes we have the frog, what Sri Prabhupada calls the frog in the well mentality, is that the frog in the well would say, when he's told about the ocean, he'll say, sure, yeah, I believe it when I see it, but they don't have that faith. And it's funny, even when we realize even in this, from mundane situations, uh, you know when we see certain things, uh, we might take it as a shock. Like, I know when I was in India, in South India, people there were completely amazed. I was in the queue for the temple, and people were completely amazed they saw me, in terms of like a white skin, and it was like the first time it could have been that they ever saw someone like that, and they were just wide-eyed. And it's mentioned in Sri Prabhupada, uh, in His Holiness Giriraj Swami's book, that when the devotees first went to India, and they were from the West, they're saying that people were actually touching their skin to see if it would come off, as if it was like paint or something. So, as we can see, even in this world, from one continent to another, um, it's completely new for us that, um, and when we think about in terms of the Vedic scriptures, uh, things that are mentioned they might seem uh, sometimes hard to imagine. Krishna's universal form and so on. Uh, but when we have actually faith, and we can see that actual in terms of even scientific um, research and so on, like when we talk about in the scriptures, it says that actually cow dung is pure, and we see that there's been a lot of even evidence for that in terms of antibacterial and so on. And it said also in the Vedic scriptures that all bones are impure, like, but then except it says the conch shell is pure, and we use a conch shell as part of the deity worship. So on the evidence of the scripture, um, but ultimately, uh, in terms of science, will always have its limitations. That the process of devotional service is one of self-verification. Um, so it's something that we actually have to go through the process and have that actual revelation ourselves. Um, I'd like to ask if there's any questions. Yes, yes please, Prabhu. Well, Duryodhana was shown a universal form, but it was like Duryodhana was trying to arrest Krishna, and Krishna was, showing him how impossible that is. That that he's shown of his more of his supremacy, but um, it was basically to just to show that Duryodhana he can't do anything to Krishna, and that's my understanding, that to show that in terms of Krishna is supreme, and you can't just arrest the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's my understanding. Yeah. Yes, Machi. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. No. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. 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 Mm. 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 Yeah. 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 Ultimately, yeah. That like devotional service isn't such a cheap thing to realize spiritual knowledge, and devotional service unto Krishna. That it's not something which he can openly show himself to everyone. And um, as we know in devotional service, that uh, Krishna doesn't actually bestow, in terms of the highest realizations, because um, ultimately, uh, in terms of actually developing our innermost devotion for Krishna, Krishna ultimately becomes um, under the control of his devotee, in that sense, that he becomes is somewhat subordinate to the devotee's desire, but ultimately in that stage, the devotee he's only has pure intentions to serve Krishna. So it's something very special. It's as mentioned, the most confidential knowledge. Uh, and yeah, and of course, if we can all chant together, which is the can only be we know can only know Krishna through ultimately chanting, and the process recommended by Srila Prabhupada and all the acharyas, and inaugurated by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I'd like to ask if there's any more questions. Okay, I can't think I was, yeah, speaking of something just before. Um, yeah, actually, in terms of uh, what's conceivable and inconceivable to us, um, and in the scriptures, it actually does give us that knowledge. And as I mentioned, even in terms of scientific discoveries, there's actually one devotee. His name is Drutava Karmaprabhu, also known as Dr. Michael Cremo, and uh, basically he has seen that even in terms of scientific evidence that supports a more uh, a Vedic side of view in terms of this actual material world, that there's so much archaeological evidence that we've been here a lot longer than the mainstream science says. And it's interesting that this Dr. Michael Cremo or Druta Karmaprabhu, all his information has come from official scientific papers. So it's the official scientific papers uh, which have documented, all these different discoveries. Like, if, for example, the most one I just heard was 4,000 over 4,700 years ago. It was somehow preserved in this kind of wet land where the oxygen didn't get in, and there was this wood which was carved and like a dovetail joint. It was very cleverly put together, and so the wood normally would erode, but it was kept preserved, and this was a clearly intelligently constructed piece. And it just goes to show that all these different evidences are there, um, even though they're not necessarily so well, yeah, supported or in the actual textbooks of the schools, which is, yeah, just how it is at the moment. But uh, this devotee has, yeah, used an official, documented scientific papers. Um, so yeah, it's interesting that actually a lot of evidence does actually support the Vedic version of events, and that, yeah, life goes back a long time in these different cycles and yugas. Uh, yeah, so it's something which is, yeah, very interesting. And yeah, we can see even, yeah, there's even today that, yeah, there's so much different evidence. Like, uh, I haven't he has this book called Forbidden Archaeology, in which he presents all these different published papers of scientific research, which actually give, yeah, starting evidence. But uh, he said often things are rejected out of emotion, that they'll say it simply can't fit the narrative, so it must be something wrong with it, or it must be like they found perfectly what looked like a human foot or hand, which was like 1 million years old or something. And then in the, it's going back a time far beyond, but they said that basically, uh, wow, this must have been a monkey exactly like a human or something. So uh, y- the evidence are there, but it fits their own narrative in that sense. Uh, but it does very much fall into line with the actual Vedic teachings that uh, of the different yuga cycles, that there's partial annihilations, and then the world will actually repopulate again until the the end of the final devastation in terms of the end of Lord Brahma's life. So that's in terms of the actual overall cosmic manifestation. Okay, so if there's any more questions or yes, Praju, yes. Mm. Yes, thank you, Prajnabu. Yeah, it's ultimately everything is down to relationship and our relationship with the Supreme. That Krishna says that he is the ocean of all relationships. That yeah, that ultimately, um, in a relationship with others, we have to see Krishna in that as well. It's everything is actually dovetailed towards Krishna's, uh, you know, actual satisfaction. That uh, and to actually by loving others as well as how we actually love Krishna as well, to see everyone as these parts and parcels. There's something, to mention as well, that it's interesting that all the different species of life, and even when you think about like as mentioned, the worm or the bees or the different forms of life, that even in one way or another, they're still, even they're not so conscientious, they're still doing service of some kind in terms of their part of the ecosystem, and to help the world go round, and ultimately they they gain that human form of life, which is uh, a more pious life, and then then that's how we have to actually have to learn to love in that sense. Yeah. So we might just yeah, we'll all chant one more time. If that's okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And when we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, um, the actual meaning is, my dear Lord, please engage me in your devotional service. So that's our prayer. Okay. So thank you very much, and that'll be the end of today's class. Bhagavad Gita ki, Sri Prabhupada ki, all glories assembled devotees. Hare Krishna.
Oh, Hi Krishna, we will start in a minute or so. So if you can please get up and just come forward. And the ladies for the Aarti are up here, so please repeat after me and join me for the Aarti. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Lakshman Hanuman ki, Shri Gauranitai ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Ki Bachaya